Hello and welcome along to another episode of the Tackling Sport Podcast and Premier League fan predictions with your host Daniel Hussey, joined alongside me by my brother Sean.
How's it going?
And firstly, we're joined by champion Ciarán McDermott, going for 2 in a row, all the way from Auckland, New Zealand, heading to his Christmas party in a couple of hours. Ciarán, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks very much, lads. Great to be back on. Good morning to you all.
Good morning, Ciarán, and then delighted to welcome Challenger. And because it's a Christmas special, and a lot of the people have asked, they've kind of got exams on, we were going to bring back a fan's favourite, but unfortunately, Keena Hannigan wasn't able to come on the show today. So delighted to welcome in his place, James Mouatt. James, welcome to the podcast.
How you doing, lads? How you doing? It's great to be back. First time in 4 weeks. Tottenham aren't top of the league, and you have me on the day after, so it's good to be here.
Yeah, once Firmino got that last minute goal last night, I said I know exactly who I'm going to ask to come on the podcast. But Ciarán, we'll get
got a message half an hour later.
we'll get straight into it, Ciarán. You yourself being a Liverpool fan, Jim's being a Spurs fan. For those that don't know, it's 3 points for correct score and 1 point for correct result. So Ciarán, straight to you for Palace versus Liverpool. How do you see this game going?
Yeah, I thought Liverpool were reasonably strong yesterday. I thought the best team won. I would say obviously they can't justify a huge amount given it's a 90-minute winner. But yeah, I suppose you have to remember they are reasonably under strength. They're missing the best defender in the world. They're missing Thiago, who's reshaped the whole team, and they're missing their most informed player in Thiago Jota. Palace look pretty good. Obviously, it's up and down, so you really can't hang your hat on Palace at all. The Benteke red might have an impact. It might not. It might be beneficial. Obviously, maybe a big man up front might fit Reece Williams reasonably well. I've gone for 1-0 Liverpool here. I do think they'll win. I think they've got enough to control the game and win. But I think Palace will sit back and they'll be pretty wary of them on the counter. So I'm only thinking 1, but I do think they'll be strong enough to win.
Interesting. Good solid start there for Ciarán. Jim, into you. Obviously Spurs didn't manage to get the 3 points away to Palace. You do feel if Liverpool go ahead and get the 3 points, it could be a big turning point? Yeah, Jim, I'll put you're just on mute there. I knew I could see that happening a mile away. 1 second, I'll mute you there. Off you go.
Okay, to be honest, I think the opposite of Ciarán. I thought Liverpool were very lucky against Tottenham. Spurs
Really?
could have had 4 goals then. If Bergwijn could finish, we would have had. And Harry Kane missed a gilt-edge 5-yard header. I know I can't curse in this podcast, but Klopp, I just don't like him at all. He's always moaning and playing up to the correct cameras with his antics. What does he think? He's on Geordie Shore or something? I don't like him at all. Liverpool haven't won away from home since September. Nobody brings that up at all. And I don't think they're going to win on Saturday. I know Palace are missing Benteke, who was sent off last night. But Zaha's very good against Spurs, and every time he plays, he seems to do well. So I'm going to go 1-1.
1-1. So Sean, what do you make of that? Jim, quickly, what was the word you're going to call Klopp then? I don't mind you saying it. If you did you have a word in mind of what you're going to call him?
Prick.
Okay, that's great. I might edit that one out. Sean, into you. How do you see this game going?
Well, George Jose Mourinho was feeling unlucky on after Firmino's late goal, and I'm sure when he wakes up in the training ground on Friday and looks at Liverpool playing Crystal Palace and there's no fans there after he played against 2,000 fans in Selhurst Park last week, I'm sure he'll feel even more aggrieved. I think it eases the burden on Liverpool. I think it goes from a really tough place to go to kind of an easier one. Liverpool full of confidence now. You could tell Klopp, judging by the celebrations and by the players, but also by his subs at Fulham. He could afford to draw Fulham. He couldn't afford to lose to Tottenham or even draw to Tottenham. So it was a big win, full of confidence. I think they'll beat Palace. I think Liverpool to win, both teams to score.
Jim, we're going to stay with you and go to Saints versus Manchester City. Saints actually third in the league at the moment, doing very well. How do you see this game going against the Pep Guardiola side that haven't seemed to fire in all season?
Yeah, this is going to be a great game. Southampton been very good this season. I really like James Ward-Prowse. He could be playing for a top 4 team easy, in my opinion. They should have beat Arsenal too. Arsenal are bloody useless at the moment, but I'll get onto that in the next game. Even though he's dreadful, and they have even Theo Walcott scored against Arsenal the other day, even though he's a Lewis Hamilton want to be. But he's been playing well for the first time since he was 16, so that's good to see. The absolute arrogance of Man City and Pep playing such a weakened side against West Brom, they deserved not to win that game. They haven't been really great this season at all. Jesus isn't even close to Aguero. And I think Sterling hasn't been great either. He's a bit like a Bambi on ice kind of thing. But I'm going to go 3-2 to City on this game. I just think they're going to have too much for Southampton.
Interesting. Ciarán, into you. I'm already dreading the Arsenal prediction next, but Ciarán, into you. How do you see this game going?
Yeah, similar to James, I think. Definitely a good game. Southampton, obviously they're playing very well. I do think they'll be disappointed not to get all 3 points at Arsenal. Hasenhüttl spoke of the respect that his team is getting now from the big teams, and I think for this one against City, it's going to count against them. I think City will give them that respect and ultimately win the game. Obviously, they're very disappointed with the result against West Brom. It was a soft goal. They've rotated their back four a lot recently. And I do think once they get a bit of consistency there, they'll be stronger. So I'm thinking City to win 2-1 on this one.
Yeah, I do think Southampton, Sean, will get something out of this game. Not a little bit off the back of Ciarán's. I do think Southampton or City will pay them a little bit of respect. And I think ultimately Southampton might get a 1-1 draw, that kind of thing. Sean, what are you thinking yourself?
Yeah, like it's a tricky one. And we've said it, like, I think City are just missing a little bit of a spark. I still think that they won't be too far away. You know, Sterling misses that chance. Gundogan misses that chance in the last 5 minutes. A couple of seasons ago when they won the league, they scored them all. You know, you think of that game actually against Southampton when Sterling scored in the 90th minute and Guardiola went up to Nathan Redmond kind of bizarrely shouting in his face. And I think it's funny how both sides have gone really since then, and Southampton have been, probably the standout team this year in terms of where they've come from and what they've done under Ralph Hasenhüttl. But I don't know. I kind of fancy Manchester City to click into gear soon, because it'll be before it's too late, really. And I wonder what their plan in January is, whether they go for anyone. But I still think that they're probably just missing something. That was bizarre. It was a bizarre signing, transfer getting rid of Leroy Sané, who's, I know he was injured for his last year or so, but he's a quality player. And I think they're kind of missing that little bit of cutting edge. And even just to rotate Mahrez and Sterling, I think he's a better option than what they have. But I kind of fancy Manchester City here. Southampton have played a lot of games recently. And now Manchester City they rotated. Southampton haven't rotated any of that midfield or back four. So I fancy Man City.
Yeah, I think it's a 3-1 City there in terms of myself being the only one that fancy Southampton to get anything. Jim, we'll stick to you. Okay, you build up your Arsenal monologue. The floor is yours. I'm going to put myself on mute here and I'll just listen.
Listen, I know this is a very pro-Arsenal podcast, but even you two must think it's nearly time for Arteta to go. He doesn't have a clue what he's doing for me. Like, you have Hector Bellerin, who can't even take a throw, and he's for some reason wearing the smallest shorts in the world. Jack and Pepe, who think they're in the UFC, and Aubameyang, up until last night, couldn't even score in a brothel. I could go on, but I don't even know what's happening to you. Then you have Edu chap, who's your technical director, saying for some reason that he's doing a wonderful job this week. But yeah, definitely losing this one. I think Calvert-Lewin 2 goals. He's my nap of the week. And I'm going to go 3-0 to Everton.
3-0?
3-0 to Everton, yeah.
All right, you're taking the piss. Ciarán?
Fair play. I don't know if I can give Arsenal much more than Jim has. Everton, the last 2 have been great. Looks like they're back to that kind of early season form that they had going in the first couple of games. I think Alan is a massive loss. He's really run the midfield for them in there. And given it's kind of a load type injury, it's a hamstring injury, it says a lot about the kind of maybe the rotation that they haven't had or haven't been able to do. Arsenal, yeah, you really can't back them. I thought there was some improvements from last week. Great goal. Had some chances. Obviously, they would have been lucky to nick it. And Gabriel Red, that'll be a loss. So I'm actually going to say 1-0 Everton here for this one. I think there'll be improvements for Arsenal.
Yeah, I don't mind that, Ciarán. That was a more balanced view on Arsenal, I thought myself. Sean, has Jim got a point there with Arteta? I know myself anyway, I'd still be backing him. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think the Southampton game was a lot better and there was a lot more fight, and you can still see the players that probably haven't got the shackles off. They're still playing as if, the pressure they're in, and, they're 15 for a reason. The results haven't been good enough. The form hasn't been good enough. But I think there's enough there to warrant giving them a choice. You see stuff on Twitter like, we should have Hasenhüttl in. If Arsenal had Hasenhüttl, they'll sack him because, so it takes a while for managers to get their ideas. And I think it's just a thing about football, really, whether you give a manager time. Time is not really what they have, but if you give time, the rewards are better. You look at Southampton, if they were to get, I don't know, a big Sam in when they sack Ras Hasenhüttl, they'd be back to square one. Whereas now they've kind of stuck with him, they've weathered the storm, and now they can show that they're better than, top 20 or top 15. They're not limiting themselves. And I think, like, with Arteta, I think he is. I think he's still a bit young, a bit raw in his managerial career, but I think there's enough there. I think this game might suit Arsenal. I think, the two centre halves, I presume he'll bring in David Luiz. Now, whether he plays 5 at the back or 4, I don't know if Rob Holden will mind playing Calvert-Lewin, because Calvert-Lewin, it's just all aerial with Everton. I think that kind of plays into his hands. And the one thing about Calvert-Lewin is he can bully defenders, and he bullied Zuma and he bullied Silva last week. But hopefully the Arsenal defenders will be able to stay with him for longer. But a draw, I think, would be a good result. 1-1.
I can see Arsenal getting at least a draw. Like I said, I do think it's a game that suits them a bit more. It's just a slow process. It's not a case of going from 0 to 100, I guess, and they're starting from rock bottom. But Ciarán, we'll stick with you for the 8:00 game on Saturday. 4 games on Saturday. Newcastle at home to Fulham. Fulham have kind of, slowly shown signs of coming back, and I guess Newcastle would have, they went 1-0 up and get away to Leeds United. They were probably thinking they could at least get a draw, and they got absolutely battered there in the last few minutes and lost 5-2. How do you see this game going?
Yeah, battle for 15th, Dan, isn't it? Newcastle, they've obviously had flashes of some brilliance. Brilliance is a strong word, of being a reasonably strong team, but they just can't string it together. Fulham, on the other hand, a good team to watch, and I think people are kind of really willing for them, given it's a good story. Scott Parker and stuff like that is doing a pretty good job. And I'm thinking Fulham are going to nick a 1-0 away win here. I just think it's for these kind of games, form is really everything, because there's not a whole lot between the two teams, and there won't be come the end of the season. So on the back of the more recent kind of points that Fulham are getting, I think they'll have enough to get a win. And so 1-0 away win for me on this one. That's
interesting, Jim. I'll be interested in your take on this now.
It's just one of those games. I probably won't be watching this one, to be honest. Leeds were very good against Newcastle the other day, to be fair. But Fulham had a couple of good results in the last 2 games. And I was speaking to a Fulham fan, Connor Daly, there the other night, and he wasn't happy with all the negativity aimed towards Fulham on this podcast. So because of that, and that I think Steve Bruce isn't a very good manager, I'm going to go 2-1 to Fulham.
Oh, wow. So we've had 2 Fulham away wins. Connor is actually, you'll be booked in one of the January Premier League predictions. So we give everyone their say on this podcast, Jim, as you well know. Sean, is Jim a bit harsh there? And you're Steve Bruce there. They did get battered on Wednesday against. That probably wasn't a great result for you now, Sean, considering I've had a Leeds fan, James Mouatt, on to me there as well. Wanted to have his say too. So
Newcastle are still sort of recovering, still missing a lot of key men from the COVID and everything that's hit them. So I wouldn't really read too much in, because Leeds, in fairness to them, can do that to a lot of sides. And Newcastle Steve Bruce won't be happy with how open they were, considering they get a lot of criticism for being too defensive. But the one thing about Newcastle is, and Steve Bruce, he knows, he's got the experience to, if you want to stay up and you want to, be good in the Premier League, you got to beat the teams in and around them. And this year they beaten West Ham, Burnley, Palace, and West Brom. So I think he'll know how big a game it is. And the same way Brighton didn't really, I was disappointed with them against Fulham. I actually went back and watched the last 20 minutes or so. I found it, and they were brutal, really, Brighton. And you've got to really beat the teams in and around you to get up and out of there. So I think Newcastle will beat Fulham. I must say, Scott Parker has done well the last few weeks, and I could definitely see them scoring. But I think Newcastle and Callum Wilson, and he played Ryan Fraser as well, so interested to see what they do there. But I fancy Newcastle.
Yeah, I don't think we've been overly harsh. Jamie Carragher predicted their demise after 3 games relegation on Fulham.
But in fairness, that Villa performance was one of the worst performances I've seen in the Premier League, and that was the 3rd game. And then your man, the owner's son, the sporting director, tweeted that we tried to sign 4 centre backs, and now we're trying to sign a 5th, and 2 of them got COVID and all. It's like they're in a real difficulty. And it was that Wolves game. I know they lost to Wolves away, but they really, really battled well. The goal, I think Wolves scored, Mitrovic is in his own box defending, and I think that Scott Parker's probably changed the attitude there and realised how's the best way to stay up. So in fairness to him, he has changed, he's adapted.
Yeah, absolutely. Ciarán, we'll stick with you again, and we're going to go Brighton versus Sheffield United. I guess it's probably last chance to do Sheffield United because they are coming up against a Brighton team that just can't seem to get a result. Like they even went 1-0 up against Fulham there, and the goals were allowed for VAR. Kind of sums up their season at the moment. You know, they may be leading a lot of expected goals table, like you said last week, but it's just a case they can't quite get a win together. And it's Sheffield United side that Chris Wilder's under massive pressure.
Big time, yeah, absolutely. Sheffield's on track for less points than Derby, which a lot of people probably didn't think was possible before the start of this season. And obviously, both Brighton coming on the back of a pretty disappointing result to Fulham. I did say Sheffield would get a result in the next 3 games. Obviously, it remains to be seen if they get a result against United. So I'm going to back a 1-1 draw here. I think it favours Sheffield given the style of play. I don't think it'll be a bit of a spectacle. So yeah, look, I think again they're not going to string any kind of consistent run of form together. You really wouldn't back them for that now. But I think there's a good bit of fight in the team still. Chris Wilder is still a really good football man, a good football manager, and so I'm thinking a 1-1 draw for this one.
Jim, into you.
Yeah, I reckon it's a race between Chris Wilder and Arteta to be the next manager sacked. And I reckon if Brighton win this one, Chris Wilder will be sacked. Sheffield United can't even buy one these days. They probably couldn't even afford it with their budget either. But they're absolutely awful. Everyone has them sussed after what they did last season. You know, Brighton have a few all right players with Donny Welbeck and Maupay, and I think it's going to click for them this weekend. They're going to win 2-0.
2-0 Brighton. Sean, into you. Interesting with Chris Wilder had a pop at a journo for calling them Sheffield United Sheffield. I think I just heard Ciarán call Sheffield United Sheffield. Do you want to kind of explain the disrespect that not just Chris Wilder feels, but you feel as well?
I know, I don't really feel, but there's 2 teams in Sheffield the same way Manchester. There's 2 teams. It's like the worst one though is Nottingham Forest, Notts County. You don't call Nottingham Forest Notts Forest. I mean, they go mad because they don't want any affiliation to Notts County. But no, I was disappointed with them against Southampton. Like there was nothing positive to take from the game. They didn't attack it. They were really crippled with fear. Jagielka, I mean the goalkeeper, like he made a couple of great saves, Ramsdale, but my God, I mean for the goal twice, you know, when Jagielka heads the ball, he's not shouting loud enough. That's always a sign of a goalkeeper that's not playing with confidence. When the defender heads the ball and it's coming straight to his hands, and then the ball gets headed up again and he doesn't come, and Che Adams gets in against his former club. So I think that's just the run Sheffield United are in, that like it's going to be impossible to stay up, and considering that they're still in tier 3 and they won't have fans till the new year, I think that it's even more of an impossibility. And I'm sure Chris Wilder would have felt even more down watching Fulham play Liverpool with 2,000 fans and getting a draw, just thinking what could be or what could have been. So I think he's in a real bind. I think for another while it's still Chris Wilder's decision whether he's still manager, because what he's done with that football club. But I think if it keeps getting this ugly and things don't pick up between now and, you know, in and around the first round of the FA Cup, I think they might have to part ways and give a new manager at least January to try and sort something. You're on mute.
Sorry, Jim, Ciarán, with England being on tier 3 at the moment, it just feels like there's only a couple of Premier League teams that can have home fans at the moment. Any of you guys have particular strong opinions on whether that's fair enough? Maybe Ciarán first.
Yeah, I don't know if it has a huge bearing. Given the Project Restart stuff and everyone was playing behind closed doors anyway, I don't know if you can really hang your hat on that as a factor of kind of swinging results. Maybe the balance of it, if it's played over, you know, a year or so, and you might be able to point to some kind of incremental change there. But yeah, ultimately, I don't think it has a huge bearing. Again, they've all been used to playing behind closed doors anyway. It shouldn't have that much of an impact. And in the most cases, it's not a huge crowd roaring you on. You know, it's like, what is it, 2,000 people at most?
2,000.
Yeah. So like it shouldn't make, and it's in one stand as well. There's no real collective kind of atmosphere there. So yeah, I don't think they can point to it as a bit of a factor, to be honest with you.
Jim?
I think it is a bit of a factor, to be honest. You know, it's even if it is only 2,000, you know, it's at least it's something, you know, and kind of. By the way, but it has a big impact on how you feel, as a player, I guess. And I feel like I don't know. I know like Spurs aren't. There's 62,000 stadium. It's only be 2,000, but it's gonna. At least it's something. It's kind of motivation for the players more than anything.
And I think if I was just looking at the championship earlier, and I had them here, and two clubs who struggled really at home this year, and have been Millwall and Preston. And traditionally, they'd be kind of two tough places to go, especially Millwall and Preston. And they're in the bottom 5 or 6 clubs after 9 games for home results, and they're in the top 9 for their away results. So I think there is, some clubs it won't affect. I think it affects others. I think Sheffield United's 100% affecting. And if you go back and look at Norwich, after lockdown, I mean, they just kind of gave up the ghost so early, and you think if they have a couple of thousand fans there, even it helps them, but obviously it wasn't to be. So I think it does have an impact, especially the Chelsea Everton game. I think it 100% had an impact in that, and the Everton fans kind of helped the players in that regard. But I think it's going to really sting for a few clubs come the end of the season, especially if they can't get any fans in for another while. I'm thinking, particular Man City, Man United, Sheffield, who haven't had fans yet, and that part of England really.
Yeah, I guess Frank Lampard coming out and saying, and after he didn't mention he was unhappy with the 2,000 fans thing until Chelsea were put in tier 3. I thought that was a bit rich myself, but I guess overall if it keeps going it might become a small bit of a factor. But moving on to the next game, I have Scum versus Leicester written down. I presume that's Spurs, Jim. You're home to Leicester at 2:15 on Sunday. How do you see this game going?
Yeah, I'll say it. I said it once and I'll say it again. I just think Tottenham are very unlucky against Liverpool. Like Liverpool got that fluke deflection goal, and then that last minute winner from the defensive striker with the
did Liverpool not dominate the game? Sorry, I know Spurs probably had more chances, but do you not feel that Liverpool were dominant? For example, that first 30 minutes.
No, Liverpool had way more chances, but Spurs had the better chances. I'd like to say, but I think we definitely should have played in Ndombele and Reguilon. I just don't think Lo Celso and definitely Ben Davies don't give you what those two give you, and I know a lot of your listeners are Jose haters because he's boring or whatever, and they're just fans of his Instagram page. But the proof is in the pudding. Look at what he's won. He's won more than pretty much any other manager in the world right now. And if he wins a couple of cups or something like that, he'd be done. He'd have done brilliantly for Spurs. We haven't won a trophy since 2008, so anything like that would be brilliant. But back to Leicester, I don't know. They're kind of a weird team. They have James Madison, who scored a couple of goals, and he hasn't really done much else this season. I feel like if Jamie Vardy doesn't score a goal, usually Leicester don't score either. So I'm going to go Tottenham 3-1 win here.
You remind me of myself defending Arsene Wenger about 4 or 5 years ago. Just your thoughts.
Tottenham are second in the league then. Tottenham are second in the league then.
They're second in the league, yeah, after 13 games. Ciarán, how do you see this game going?
Yeah, I think it's another good fixture, to be honest with you, in a good game week of fixtures. Obviously Tottenham, both teams coming back off losses, but I think different stories. Tottenham, yeah, they did play well. And you have to say the goal's the same size every week, and Steven Bergwijn should really put that one away. Especially, yeah, I think the first one, it's actually good defending from Alexander Arnold, but the second one, it should go in the back of net, to be fair. But yeah, they can be happy. Leicester, on the other hand, didn't lay a glove on Everton. Thought they were quite poor. It's back-to-back big games for Tottenham. I think they're rolling pretty well now. I think the team looks good, looks consistent, to be fair. So I'm going to say a 2-1 win for Spurs here, even though that they weren't the best team against Liverpool.
Sean?
Yeah, I think Jose will be the only sort of blot on what he's done over the last few weeks in the tough games they had would have been to concede a 95th minute or 93-minute header, whatever it was, to Firmino. But they've been outstanding really in the last few weeks. They've done really well. Look, they probably aren't at times always the best to watch, but I think it when football's played the same way the whole time, it's a bit boring and it's not enjoyable at times. So I enjoy watching, Tottenham play sometimes. I'm not sure if I'm going to enjoy this game because I think both sides are going to let each other have the ball. Probably won't have a huge amount of quality for a while because I think both sides will be a bit cagey and wondering how each other's going to set up. This is a game where Rodgers has always sort of been tactically outdone, you think, against top class managers. So I kind of can't go away from Jose Mourinho's Tottenham. But I think if it depends how they deal with Vardy, and I think Tottenham have the midfield to deal with Vardy and to not let easy ball go through them and leave their two centre-backs up against Vardy. So I fancy, Spurs here and Jose.
There you are. So sure, Jim be happy enough that with those predictions. Ciarán, we'll go for you and stick with you on Manchester United versus Leeds United. Now, as you mentioned before, we're recording this just before the Sheffield United game. But, this could be one of the games of the weekend, I guess, because Leeds will really go out and just implement their style as they always do in every game.
Definitely, yeah. No, Leeds have been absolutely brilliant this season, just to watch and everything. They're top of the expected goals table and bottom of the expected goals conceded. So yeah, they've just been great to watch, I suppose. And yeah, definitely highlighted by that 5-goal performance against Newcastle. So hopefully we'll get a few goals in this game. I think United have been reasonably strong at home. I do think they'll score. I've gone 2-2 for this one. We'll see how they get on today against Sheffield United. But yeah, I think a good game. Hopefully 2-2 could go either way. But yeah, hopefully we get a few goals.
Jim, into you then on Manchester United versus Leeds. Dean Henderson will start on Thursday again. We're kind of in the dark here. We don't know how he played or not, but that was an interesting change regardless. How do you see this game going?
Yeah, I think this will be a great game, to be honest. United have probably the worst manager in the league after the Tapas Tony Pulis, but United are lucky. United are a very lucky team. I think the game versus City last week was probably the worst match I've ever watched in my whole life. Pogba, for me, Pogba shouldn't even be near the United team. The sooner he goes, the better. The absolute state of his agent too. I'd be fuming if that clown was even near Tottenham. Leeds were so good the other night versus Newcastle, and they absolutely tore them to shreds. I think Bamford is a very, very good player, and for me, Ireland should go over him straight away and try and snap him up. I was going to go 2-2, but because Ciarán went 2-2, I'm just going to go 3-2 to United.
Wow, Jim,
for the spirit of the competition.
I was watching the same thing you were watching. Can you explain to the listeners who weren't who the Tapas Tony Pulis is and who said it?
Who said it?
Yeah, well, the troop said it, but I presume the Tapas Tony Pulis is Mikel Arteta, is he?
That is Mikel Arteta,
yeah. Sean, into you. How do you see this game going?
Yeah, it's probably a game that Ole Gunnar won't mind because he knows what Leeds are going to do, and then he knows what Manchester United want to do. So Leeds are going to have most of the ball, and United are going to try and hit them on the break. This is a game. This game is probably more where I fancy Leeds in the big sides. I didn't fancy against Chelsea because I just think Frank is a bit more tactical now, and obviously he had the record against Bielsa, so he knew what to expect. But I kind of fancy Leeds here to at least get something from the game. I think it will be high scoring. I think both defenses are shaky. I think the Leeds defense is certainly gettable at. I actually like Luke Ayling coming in at right centre back because I think he's a good ball player for them and probably is a better decision maker than Koch in that regard. But I think we'll see goals. It's either that or I tell you one thing, it can't be worse than that City game, because we were watching it, me and you, Dan, and you couldn't even take. The only thing you could take from it is that Pep Guardiola was as scared as he was with the Manchester United front three as he was with the Liverpool one a couple of years ago when that was in LA. And in the documentary, a man talks about the front three. It was the worst game of football. It can't get worse than that. So hopefully there's goals.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't disagree with you more. Ciarán, moving on to West Brom Villa. Where do you stand on the Sam Allardyce appointment? It was a bit mad. They got a draw against City, albeit probably a little bit fortunately, but then the sacking of Bilic then happened straight after.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think this is actually, in many respects, the pick of the fixtures. It should be a really interesting game. And yeah, the results, obviously, for Bilic, he's been unhappy with the club hierarchy for a long time. I think, the decision was probably made long before. I think if they go out and beat City 5-0, I think he probably still goes. Allardyce, obviously, you've got to look at him as a short-term solution, perhaps, because there's a long-term solution in Eddie Howe still available for that kind of position. Allardyce, obviously, he's never been relegated from the Premier League. We all know what he's going to bring. He's a great thinker, so it should be quite exciting. Obviously, it's a Midlands derby straight away, and after that, it's the game against Liverpool, and so there's a little bit of pressure for him to get a result straight away, which I think you will get. I'm going to go 1-0 West Brom on this one, but yeah, it's great to see Big Sam back in action.
Yeah, interesting because you were pushing for Eddie Howe and then you went with Big Sam at the end. Jim, where do you stand there on the sacking? Would you have gone for an Eddie Howe, or was Big Sam the right man to keep West Brom in the Premier League?
It was the Big Sam's record's been very good. The teams he's taken over that were struggling, I think it's 3 teams he's taken over and they've never been relegated, and they've all been like when he took over, they were in the relegation zone. But I think West Brom are going to be going down. I know Darren O'Dean might be listening to this, but he's definitely playing championship football next season.
Darragh O'Shea, you mean, not Darragh O'Dea. He used former Celtic and Clonkeen player
Darragh O'Shea. Yeah,
Darragh O'Shea.
Take that one back in Premier League. Good stuff.
Take that one out. Fuck's sake. Okay.
Go on.
So I think Villa are going to win this one 2-1. I think
2-1 Villa. Jim, I'm definitely not taking that out. Sean, where do you stand on the Sam Allardyce sacking?
Yeah, Ciarán's right. It's been coming for a while. I think even up until this time last year when they were flying high near the top of the championship, there was talk of him being sacked. So I think it's just a clash. Really, I mean, football owners are, not very nice at the best of times. And considering what him and Julian Dix have done with West Brom, they probably haven't had the best post-season or post-lockdown form in terms of they sort of fell over the line, and in a little sense we're maybe a little bit lucky to fall over the line with Brentford losing, in quite an exciting finish in the championship. But yeah, look, it's a safe one. I don't know what to say more on it. Like when you see it, like it's great. It's not great because I actually like Slaven Bilic as a manager, but I think it's great just to see Big Sam back and knowing full well, like you can't wait for West Brom to play at Anfield now, or West Brom to play at the Etihad, and just. Actually, West Brom Tottenham now, that'd be the game with
Jesus.
Big Sam and Jose back. But no, it's an interesting appointment, and I'm sure it will reinvigorate the West Brom players. And put it this way, they could be in Sheffield United's position, so I think he has a chance of keeping them up.
And one word, will they stay up?
No, I don't think they've unless he gets Charlie Austin scoring goals. Other than that, no.
And starts Darragh O'Shea in the back four. Ciarán, one word. Do you think West Brom will stay up, yes or no?
Yes, I think it's an interesting time for them. And hopefully, obviously, with Darragh O'Shea, he was a bit of almost like a pest to Slaven Bilic. So it's kind of a pivotal month or so for a friend of the show, Darragh O'Shea. But yeah, it looked really strong against City. So yeah, hopefully he continues that run of form.
Yeah, I think if he does that, I think West Brom stay up. Yeah, I'm convinced myself of it. Jim,
but then
go on, Sean.
Who's gone down? Like the one.
I know. Think Sheffield United.
Yeah, I think Brighton are in big trouble. Fulham have done well, but I don't think they've.
I think Burnley are gone down.
The strength.
Oh, well, they're drawing 0 with Villa at the moment.
No, I think they're gone down. Have enough. I think if West Brom are to stay up, I think it'll be Brighton, Sheffield United, and Fulham. So then Big Sam and Sean Dyche stay up. But I mean, hopefully we'll have a title race and a relegation battle. And we haven't had this for a long, long time. The Man City Liverpool game was just a title race a couple of years ago. It was so relentless, and that was good. But we haven't had a proper, last game of the season for a few years. So I know Villa obviously this year were post lockdown, just staying up by a goal. But I think it's that bit of excitement again.
Yeah, and hopefully Sheffield United get back into it as well. Jim, we'll go to you for Burnley versus Wolves. Penultimate game there, 5:30 Monday. How do you see it going?
Yeah, Wolves are a bit of a weird team for me. They get a good win, then they lose to some crap team the next week. But they got Daniel Podence, who's an unbelievable player for me. Him and Neto have been fantastic for Wolves. For some reason, Troy, who they were talking about for 80 million only a few months ago, has got no goals or assists this season, so it's a bit of a weird one. But Burnley got a nice win there against the 15th best team in the league last weekend. But I think this is going to be a Wolves win, 2-0. Easy enough. 2-0.
Ciarán, into you. How do you see this game going?
Yeah, it's not the pick of the fixtures by any means. Wolves were good against Chelsea. Obviously they've come through. I'm thinking obviously, attacking wise, as Jim mentioned, Podence, Neto look strong. And I'm thinking Burnley will get a result because I do like them at home, especially. And I want to be different to Jim's prediction as well a little bit. So I want to get 1-1 draw. 1-1
draw. Sean, very quickly.
A Burnley 1-0.
Burnley 1-0. Okay, we'll go to the final game, Chelsea versus West Ham. Ciarán, we'll stick with you for this one. Frank Lampard, when we were talking on the show last week, we weren't really expecting 2 defeats for Chelsea back to back. It's a bit of a, not crisis is the wrong word, but suddenly this game against in form, David Moyes West Ham is suddenly a massive game.
Yeah, absolutely. it's 2 losses, but they actually played well. And it's funny because Frank Lampard is someone who you can really see and tell by the look on his face when he's stressed, and he kind of doesn't look very healthy at times. But he even said himself after those games, he was like, look, I think we actually played pretty well. So yeah, to be honest with you, I wouldn't be too concerned, but it is a big game for them. They can't lose 3 in a row, especially not to a kind of London rival in West Ham. And I'm going to back them for this one. I'm going to say 2-0. Yeah, I wouldn't be too concerned. I think they've got the quality, and I think they were showing signs before this kind of 7 to 8 day period that they've had 2 losses in, that they actually were becoming a really strong team with really good kind of a variety of attacking options. So I think they'll have enough again. I think they'll bounce back with a pretty strong performance. And yeah, I'm going to say 2-0.
2-0. Jim. Well, Jim takes himself off mute there. Give him a second. Off you go.
And this is the anti-Spurs derby. But for me, Frank Lampard, if he wasn't a Chelsea legend, English, or if he wasn't good looking, he'd been sacked by now. He moans about absolutely everything, and he's just always giving out in his post-match interviews. Chelsea for me have the best squad in the league. They've spent so much money every single year. Havertz looks like he could be an absolute waste of money by the way he's playing. He was dreadful the other night as well. Werner seems to be one of the least prolific strikers in the world right now. He's literally a German Theo Walcott. Their best player this season has been Kurt Zouma, which kind of says it all. As Chelsea haven't beat its team in the top 13 so far this season, I'm thinking I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in this one.
Wow, that's a stat.
Yeah.
Good looking Frank Lampard. Sean, move on to you. You were saying to me after, now I watched the game, first 60 minutes I agree with Ciarán. I thought Chelsea were phenomenal, and for some reason they just threw the game away. I thought you have a thing though against Olivier Giroud, and while he's playing well at the moment, he's not the answer long term for Chelsea.
No, like they pigeonholed him in because he scored a few goals against a changed Seville team who they had both already qualified, and he scored 4 goals. And don't get me wrong, I've watched Giroud a long time, obviously for Arsenal, and he's kind of good when the team is good, and Arsenal win 3-0 or Chelsea win 3-0. He might score the second goal or the third goal. He's not a striker who's gonna get you to challenge for the league. And I know Frank played down talks that, but with the money they've spent, they need to be the third best team with the money they've spent. Let's be real. So I like Chelsea were playing well as well up until they got they brought Giroud, and I think they're so predictable now. They just try and whip the ball in, and they're playing West Ham, who whether they play 4 at the back or 5 at the back are gonna have Ogbonna, out of Albuena. I know they played Diop the other day, and then Souček. Now they've got tall men who are able to deal with crosses, and West Ham put in a lot of crosses themselves. So I just don't think he's the answer to the moment. But I do fancy Chelsea because it's a Monday night football, and I'm sure Frank will want to win and kind of show everyone who's watching, and he probably wants to be interviewed after the game by Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville, knowing what Frank Lampard's a bit about. But no, I kind of fancy Chelsea here, but West Ham have been brilliant as well.
Ciarán, yeah, I'd like to get your thoughts very quickly before we finish with a tiebreaker. Are you a fan of Giroud there, or like the 3 options number 9, either Timo Werner, Tammy Abraham, or Giroud? All got question marks, I guess. Who would you play there?
Yeah, I think he really, at the start of the season, we were all looking at Timo Werner and saying he'll get 20 goals. So like, obviously he's playing wide left, and not out of position, but not in that kind of number 9 that Tammy Abraham played so well in last year. And I think Giroud is a kind of short-term option. Like Sean mentioned, I don't think he's a sustainable, goal getter in that one. Timo Werner is one of the most talented players on the planet. He hasn't showed it this season, but I think you just got to give him time. I think he's their man long term, and they spent the money on him, to be honest. So I'd back him more than the other options. Yeah,
I agree. But Jim, it does seem that Frank wants him out left.
Yeah, I think I don't think he's tall enough in the Premier League to be playing as a central striker, really. But for Giroud, I think he'd be a good player to bring on from the bench. Really, I think that's where he's best. I think Chelsea can't really play Tammy Abraham because he's also dreadful. But I don't know. I can imagine Chelsea going for Haaland maybe or something like that. Definitely seeing him with Chelsea next year or something like that.
I like Werner, and the one thing about Werner is I know he's missed a lot of chances, but I think you'd rather see a striker be in there and getting the chances and maybe just missing them. Like the one thing about Aubameyang in the last few weeks is he hasn't actually been getting the chances. He hasn't been getting in the box. He hasn't been making those penetrating runs. And in fairness to Timo Werner, that's something he does do. He gets himself in the box. I know he's had a few bad misses or whatever, and the goal against Tottenham was disallowed, and that's just his luck at the moment. But I do think they got to go with Werner. Like, don't get me wrong, I like playing Giroud in the odd game if you're resting rotation, and he normally scores in those games. But I think they just got to stick with Werner. They've got the likes of Ziyech, Pulisic, Havertz. I think they're trying to shoehorn players in and around Giroud. I don't think that's the answer. I don't think that's the way Frank wants to play. And I think against West Ham, because of the height of West Ham centre backs, I think he might play Timo Werner. But it's also probably an audition for Declan Rice. I know a lot of people have been talking about him going back to his former club Chelsea as a youth player, and so it's probably another audition. I know Frank really likes him.
Yeah, something we didn't do last week, Ciarán, is the tiebreaker. Good job it wasn't a draw. So basically, guys, if you're Super 6, essentially you're picking the earliest goal out of the 10 fixtures. And while you have a quick think of that number, Palace, Liverpool, Jim's gone 1-1. Ciarán went 1-0 Liverpool. Saint City, Jim went 3-2 away. Ciarán went 2-1 away. 3-0 Everton for Jim and 1-0 Everton for Ciarán. Excuse me, after 2-1 away for Fulham, Jim. 1-0 away win for Ciarán. Brighton, Sheffield United, 2-0 home win for Jim. 1-1 draw. Jim, I missed your score for Spurs Leicester. Was it 2-0 or something, or 3-0 or?
3-1 Spurs.
3-1 Spurs. Ciarán went 2-1 Spurs. United Leeds. Jim went 3-2 home win. Ciarán 2-all. Villa 2-1 away to West Brom for Jim. 1-0 home win for Ciarán for Big Sam. And then Wolves 2-0 away against Burnley. Ciarán went 1-all. And then Jim went 1-all Chelsea West Ham. And Ciarán went 2-0 Chelsea home win. So Ciarán, what minute is the earliest goal in all those 10 games going to be scored?
I'm gonna say 6.
6. Good guess, I think. Jim?
7.
7. Wow, that could come down to, lads. It nearly came down to before. We've been lucky, but that's it. We appreciate that. Thanks for joining us on the Premier League Fan Predictions Christmas Special that we're going to call it. We're guessing the next one we're going to do is probably going to be in January, but you never know. If we get a bit of buzz for it, we might do it over Christmas as well. So this is a big week, and we brought you back, Jim, for the Christmas special, so you have a chance to really establish yourself again, and Ciarán, a massive chance to dominate tackling sport all the way from New Zealand for lads. So lads, thanks for joining us.
We should do an FA Cup special and run through all, what is it, 48 games or 64 games.
Yeah, we'll just let Jim do that, will we? Just on his own.
I'm happy to do it.
I know you. Well, listen, lads, thanks for joining us. Sean, thank you as well. And listen, catch us on Tackling Sport. Keep up to date on all social media. We'll be back for an All-Ireland review with Stephen Duff on Monday. Take care. Enjoy the sport. Have a great weekend.
Cheers, lads.